we're going to first hear a scripture reading, which is from the 2nd chapter of Luke, verses 41 to 52, and it's a story of Jesus when he's 12 years old. It's the only story in the Bible of Jesus being a young boy, and it's a scripture passage that was chosen by youth who were out at this camp in 1896 when this camp was founded. And they found that this story and that the final verse 252 most describe the lives of children here at camp. So we're going to hear that scripture, and then Riley Cooper, who was program director here and a counselor here a few years ago, is going to kind of orient us on what's happening. For those of you who have been to camp, it'll be familiar. For those of you who have not been to camp, it will help you understand some context. And then we'll have a person around each side of the square speak. And the people sitting up here are people who have a significant impact on, have had a significant impact on camp and a significant relationship with Jerry. So with this back to me, Mike Rule was a camp counselor here, and then a program director, and then an associate director and the CEO of Phantom Lake at the time. On the left here is Jeff Spang, who is the current CEO of Phantom Lake YMCA camp. Facing me is in the tie, unlike Jerry would wear, but a very wonderful, dignified man. Clark Bowerman was on the board of directors for Phantom Lake YMCA camp during the time when they were owned by Waukesha Y, and then when they became independent. And then to the right here is Janet Rich, who is a long-time participant here at Phantom Lake YMCA camp as a camper, as a staff person, and as a member of the board, and regularly coming here to family camp as well. So I'll leave it to first to have Jim read the scripture, and then Riley will take it from there.
Today I'm going to read the boy Jesus at the temple. Every year Jesus' parents went to Jerusalem for the festival of the Passover. When he was 12 years old, they went up to the festival according to the custom. After the festival was over, while his parents were returning home, the boy Jesus stayed behind in Jerusalem, but they were unaware of it. Thinking he was in their company, they traveled on for a day. Then they began looking for him among their relatives and friends. When they didn't find him, they went back to Jerusalem to look for him. After 3 days, they found him in the temple courts, sitting among the teachers, listening to them and asking them questions. Everyone who heard him was amazed at his understanding and his answers. When his parents saw him, they were astonished. His mother said to him, "Son, why did you treat us like this? Your father and I have been anxiously searching for you." "Why were you searching for me?" he asked. "Didn't you know that I had to be in my father's house?" But they didn't understand what he was saying to them. Then he went down to Nazareth with them and was obedient to them. But his mother treasured all these things in her heart. And Jesus grew in wisdom and in stature and in favor with God and man.
120 years ago, a group of boys hiked from Milwaukee to the shores of Phantom Lake to spend a few days enjoying the great outdoors. That's basically how Jerry would start each Phantom Square ceremony. He was here for 30 years as a camp director, so he said that roughly 200, 300 times. Each year, of course, the number getting bigger. Right now it is 120. On the last night of the session of camp, it was dark, with all the campers gathered in the basement of the dining hall, perhaps. Counselors would begin calming their campers and telling them that they were going to go to a ceremony where they should be really quiet. The drama would build as staff members went through some slow songs with the campers. Tents would be dismissed one by one to walk up from the dining hall into the lodge silently, picking up a little birthday cake candle as they went in. And then when they got inside the lodge, it was dark. There was only a single candle burning in the middle of the square, which was on the floor. And seated around the square would be usually children, but not necessarily, 4 campers. And then behind them, seated in chairs, would be the 4 speakers for that night. And finally, it was time. Now, at this point, you have to understand, as they walked in, Jerry was sitting in his chair, behind the wisdom, sitting silently. He was there when the kids were walking in, and of course, they saw the square, they saw the light, which, you know, shed a little bit of light on the people around the square, but Jerry's back here in the dark, and Jerry's an imposing figure. So for those witnessing the family square ceremony for the first time, be they camper or staff member, it was a time of nervous anticipation and wonder as the quiet lengthened. Especially if you were one of the first tents to come into the lodge, you would be sitting there. You'd usually get a good seat up by the square. But you would be sitting there, and then other people walk in around you and fill it up, and you're wondering, what's going on? And it's really quiet. Finally, after everyone had settled, Sir Gerald would rise from the chair when he felt the time was right and begin this solemn and meaningful ritual. And that provided the perfect contrast to a session that was full of activity and noise. And now, on the last night of camp, the campers were going to be hearing a recap, not a review of what they did, but a little bit about what they learned. 63 years ago, a young man from Waupun started working at camp. As you heard from Chris, his salary, which he later calculated was 11 cents an hour, yet he was excited because it was a job. He told Eric Stein in an interview later on, recent, in the last few years, whatever, he said that if he had been sitting across the table from himself, he would not have hired himself. He was very, he felt inexperienced. He felt he had never worked with kids. He felt he wasn't the proper type of person to be hired if he didn't know what he was doing, but he was there anyway because something called to him. There were some hidden talents in Sergi. Could we agree on that? There were some hidden talents, but he did not believe in himself at that point and that he would have been hired. However, I do want to just interject that I believe he was wrong. I believe he would have hired himself because he had that opportunity 18 years later when somebody else walked up with the exact same qualifications. However, my attraction to this was the $200 salary for 5 weeks. But point taken, he did not really know what he was getting into, and he wasn't very confident. Fortunately, that benevolent and wise camp director could see the valuable untapped qualities of the young man sitting in front of him. Jerry got the job, and he went on to spend 11 of the next 13 years on staff at Phantom, and only that 2-year stint in the U.S. Army interrupted Jerry's run at camp. After leaving the Army, when Jerry went to work at the Y in Waukesha, he eventually was able to go up and work at the Y in Waukesha, and then was able to continue to work at Phantom during the summers. Somewhere in those years, of course, he became Sir Gerald by creating that character as a staff craft shop director. And that Sir Gerald defined him for a lot of people. A lot of people I know actually call him Sir G all the time. Even Chris was calling him Sir G. And that will lead to another development in a little bit. Now, 50 years ago, so it's 50 years ago this year, the Waukesha YMCA was able, thank you, I need one too. The Waukesha YMCA was able to purchase this camp from North Central Y, and Fred Lee, the executive director in Waukesha at the time, handed over the reins to Jerry and said, here's your camp. He wanted this thing. He didn't put it that way, of course, very possibly. But no, he knew Jerry had been wanting this camp. He wanted to direct this camp for the longest time. And we are so lucky that he did. Because in the year just before he took over as the camp director in 1966, the Phantom Square ceremony was starting to be phased out. Can you imagine that? For those of you who've been here, I've always seen Jerry do the square, so for those of you who've been here and have seen what an impact, how important the square ceremony is, can you imagine that being withdrawn from us? It was people like Janet Rich who helped keep it in place just enough, and believe me, as soon as Jerry got in charge, it was back better than ever. Now, as we move on, I want to address those of you who've never witnessed the Phantom Square ceremony. As you know, it's based, or if you heard, I'm a teacher, I know you can never repeat things enough. It is based on Luke 2:52, the last verse in the Bible passage that Jim read. And in these 4 areas of his life in which Jesus experienced growth during his time in the temple, wisdom, stature, favor with God, and favor with man, this seemed to reflect some of the growth that those first group of boys had when they came out here in 1896. This is as Ted said, this is the only time in the Bible where you hear about those years of Jesus' life, so it was a natural, and it fit perfectly. And if it's 4 areas, that can make 4 sides of the square. That's what that's about. 4 sides of the square, evenly balanced to reflect growth in all 4 areas. Campers now receive an actual little Phantom Square at the end of each session to serve as a reminder of their growth while at camp. And you will see people take those Phantom Squares home and put them onto jackets and shirts, and of course we sell clothing that have the square on them, hats that have the square on them. It's a symbol that people have seen all over the world. Jerry used to love to tell a story about somebody seeing a Phantom Square at the Eiffel Tower. So it gets around. So now 50 years after Jerry Carman did have a chance to finally preside over the Phantom Square, his first Phantom Square, as camp director, we are gathered here to honor him and to dedicate this square to him. And Jesus increased in wisdom and in stature and in favor with God and man.
And Jesus increased in wisdom and stature and in favor with God and man. The beginning of wisdom is silence. Yeah. That's a piece that I stuck with me that I once heard around the Phantom Square. And Sir G would lend to that quite well as what I described before the Phantom Square would take place. You know, here we are in this darkened lodge, surrounded by kids, and their eyes all looking at this one candle in the middle. And then this shape rises up behind. And a hush he would wait until there was a hush within the lodge. And then whoever's sitting in my seat in wisdom would start forth. Now, those of you who are blessed to have been here when Sir Gerald was, there were many times he'd be in front of the group and he'd have something to share, something important or announcement to make. But he would wait, wouldn't he? He would just look out there and make eye contact. And then until, everyone realized it was quiet, he wouldn't start. But occasionally, he would have a little fun then too. He would look at us and start to mouth the words. And so you look at some of these kids and they're like, and then of course, it was quiet and on we would go. His leadership is remarkable in that, and that's just a small piece of how he led us forward. I remember that, when I think of wisdom, and I think of Sir G, he personified wisdom to me. And just in his being, in his actions, he was so patient. Here we are at a camp with 200 individuals, ages 7 to, in some cases, 60 or even 70. And we look at our family camps. But those big boys' camp sessions, those large girls' camp sessions. And he was so patient with, if you've worked with college students and teenagers, that's just a quality that is special. This part always, I associate with wisdom too, was so there'd be quiet, but he was such a good listener. That was really something that stood out to me. If you think about his office, his door was always open. You step in, there's always an empty chair right there for you, if you had the courage to sit down. And then if you've done it once, it became second nature. And so that was, I was very fortunate for quite a long time to be able to sit in that chair and discuss with him something maybe important about that day or something just about life. And another aspect, when I think of Sir G, was his kindness. He was such, a giant when it came to kindness and how much he devoted of himself. And that selflessness was really staggering. His calm demeanor. I don't know if I've met anyone as calm as Sir G was. And I have this one vivid image that I have to share with you. I was probably on the athletic field, maybe helping with the game at 4:30 or something like, and the bells started ringing. And I knew there wasn't a drill. So I started, running up the hill behind Spartus. And as I reached the shoulder there's Sir G just calmly walking down the stairs with a red fire extinguisher. So the lodge everyone's streaming out, and he's walking down into the craft shop. I hear this, and then when I get up a little bit closer, he's calmly walking back upstairs. So they were making candles or something, but that was, everything's okay. Let's do a check, make sure everybody's here, and then back to the motions of camp. So he was remarkable. His impact on us, really was just, again, all the time. And part of that impact, led to the foresight sent forth our phantom ripples. That phantom spirit. And this bit of wisdom he shared with me. He said, you know, take what we learn at Phantom and to wherever life would lead us. So it was too important to just leave it here. And that really resounded with me. So to take what we've learned, what we experienced at camp, and then take it and help, have it impact the lives of those we come in touch with elsewhere. Be it back home, at school, at work. A few of us went on to work at other camps, and we certainly did, share the Phantom's, what we learned here in the Phantom Spirit in those places too. So it's, that piece of wisdom is cherished by me, and you're evidence of it here today. So, with that, in Jesus Christ, in wisdom and stature and favor with God, amen.
Nearly 10 years ago, I made one of the most important calls of my life. And that call was to Sir G. And to me, that was like calling Vince Lombardi for football advice. Our very first meeting was in Hartford, Wisconsin at the mine shaft. And I can still remember what a warm, welcoming smile he gave me when he welcomed me into the Phantom family. So that lunch meeting turned into a 4-hour meeting, which in turn turned into the second Tuesday of every single month for nearly 10 years. So I think I'm going to write a book, Tuesdays with Sir G. The life lessons I've learned through all those meetings were amazing, absolutely amazing. And today I just want to share three with you, and three that struck me every single day. Number one, Sir G's sense of humor was amazing. So number one is laughter. Always be able to laugh during the good times, and more importantly, during the bad times. During one of those bad times, I met Sir G at the hospice care in Delsman, Wisconsin, and he was going through a lot of tough times. So I didn't know what to expect. When I walked in, of course, I got a warm smile. Laughter, he made me laugh. It was just amazing. And the story he shared with me that day was about his adventures in forensics. He said the key for him was to wear very loose pants. And the reason for that is the judges wouldn't see his knees rattle. Several years ago, he worked part-time here at camp. In the business office. One of our new staff walked in, didn't recognize Sir G. And I introduced Sir G as our new receptionist. And without hesitation, Sir G picked up the phone, flipped it upside down, and started saying, "Hello, hello, hello." And the look on our staff member's face was just amazing. So, Sir G, thank you so much for teaching us to laugh, especially during the bad times. Sir G taught me to trust in God. When Phantom was in trouble, Lady Sue and Sir G were on the porch of Alfred Lodge. They held hands, said a prayer, and moments later, a double rainbow appeared. And after that, all the troubles went away. I took that advice for the Carman Welcome Center. On Monday, we didn't have occupancy permit. Tuesday night, we got occupancy permit. And Sir G was looking out for us. So thank you, Sir G, for teaching me the incredible power of prayer. And finally, he taught me about unconditional love. Sir G never kept a scorecard, never held a grudge, never ever said anything bad about anyone. And what a great mentor for all of us to live by. I love to see his face and the love that shined in his face whenever there was children around, whenever he talked about family, and especially when he talked about his family. Sir G, I'll miss the stories about hockey, movie making, dance, drama, engineering, soccer. He cherished his grandchildren, and that was wonderful to see. So Sir G, thank you for teaching me so many things, but especially laughter, prayer, and love. You were an amazing mentor to me, a great counselor, and a wonderful friend. May Jesus increase in wisdom and stature and favor of God and man.
Well, I would like to talk about favor with God. And Jim did a nice job in going back a little earlier in the chapter from Luke and talking about when Jesus first came on the scene as far as which was talked about in the Bible. And one thing I would point out is that he was 12 years old at the time. And a lot of the campers that have gone through this camp and that are here now were 12 years old. And the greatest model for favor with God is to think about Jesus and the way that he handled himself and the way he approached things. In that little bit of scripture, it talks about his respect for his parents. It talks about him asking questions and giving opinions. So he was in the process of gaining wisdom and understanding and favor with God, favor with man. And so that is the way that's introduced here at camp. And as was said by Ted, we have kids that are here at camp are from various religious backgrounds, some no religious background. But we are a Christian camp, and so we follow through with that line of thought to help people understand the Christian view of what it is to have favor with God. I'd like to switch over to some memories that I have. There was an allusion to when the time came for Phantom to consider going their separate way from the Waukesha YMCA. The people at the YMCA were not bad people. It just happened to be a time when they had deferred maintenance problems. Camp had deferred maintenance problems. And it made it difficult to not think about ways where you might be able to get some cash and pay off some debt and some expenses. And so I see Tony Bryant sitting here. He was president of the Y board, and I'm forever grateful to him because he took the leadership and said, let's see what you have. Let's call a meeting and let's see what kind of ideas and support would come out of that. And so we have a meeting at Carroll University in Shattuck Hall, and 200 people showed up. I'm sure there are quite a few people here who were there that night. And it became pretty clear to me what the Phantom spirit is. I mean, I had never really known it that much, but you had 200 people who said they're willing to commit to do whatever it takes to help the Y transition camp over to us on an independent basis. And it was a night that was glorious, but one reality kind of set in. We weren't underfunded, we were unfunded. About $5 between us, I think. And yet, you know, that kind of situation where it's exciting it made me a little bit nervous and a little bit tense. And Jerry always had the attitude that, you know, just keep moving forward. The Lord is in charge. This is going to happen. And so he was able on that occasion, a lot of other occasions, to calm me down. And I appreciate that. But we've seen the fruit of that meeting and that adventure that we've had since then. I can say, I was telling my wife this, in 11 years working with Jerry on the board, we never exchanged a harsh word. He was always patient and loving and understanding. And again, he was able to rein in my emotions at times. So that was great. A couple other things that I want to share is that the Phantom board was unlike any board that I had ever had any part in. The people on that board were people that Gerald knew, who loved him and loved Ken, and they would do whatever it took to help. And there was no necessary time limit on how long they would stay with the board. I signed on for 3 years and I was on the board for 11. So obviously I love Ken. But there are a couple of people, I noticed that Kathy Richardson's here, and there were a couple of people at the time that for me were old people, and now I am one. And her dad Bob would come out from Monroe quite a few times a month. He would make the drive and he would show up at camp and say, I'm here to work. Whatever you have for me to do, I will do. That was unbelievable. And then the second one was Fred Lee, who some of you know. But he's around 85 years old and was out there for camp setup. And he's walking around on the top of the tent frames like an aerialist. And he would do whatever it took. And that day they needed somebody to go up there and secure the tent canvas. So a lot of special memories. And one more, I saw Don Taylor back there. It was almost miraculous when we were able to secure the 25 acres of additional land where the kettles are. And we went in and talked to the bank and said, you know, we have this opportunity and you would be able to collateralize any money that you loan us. And so Waukesha State Bank stepped up at that time, as they have many times over the years there. And we're forever grateful for that. And I know that all of you are aware of the kettles and some of the things that we're able to do up there with the additional land. Excuse me. Let me just check one thing. I'm kind of going to return to the spiritual theme here. And I would like to refer you to Paul's letter to the Galatians, chapter 5:22. And I think this shows where Jerry himself continued to grow in favor with God. I found Jerry a very spiritual person, but not a preachy kind of Christian. He lived his life in such a way that he brought honor to Jesus Christ. And so I was looking through the Bible, looking at some of the references to fruit of the Spirit, and I came upon this portion from Galatians. And so this is a participatory session now. There are 9 fruits of the Spirit from this passage. I'm going to read these, and I'm going to ask you, was that Jerry? Okay, if you're ready, I am. Love. Yes. Joy. Yes. Peace. Yes. Patience. Yes. Kindness. Yes. Goodness. Yes. Faithfulness. has every one of these characteristics. And it's just amazing to me. You think about the many campers who were suffering homesickness or in need of a friend, and there was Jerry alongside them, sitting up on the seating at Alford Lodge. I have a nephew, Christopher. I have a picture of him sitting up there, and they're just sitting there kind of rocking and talking, and he had a major impact on him. My other nephew, Jeff, who's here with his wife and children, went through the program as a camper, a consular, met his wife there, who was also a consular, and now they have 2 wonderful kids. But both the boys were going through a tough time because there was a divorce going on in the family, and they just needed somebody who would be easy on, love them, care for them, and come alongside them. And Jerry did that, and I'm very thankful. I feel that this exceptional man manifests each of these gifts. I'm thankful that he was able to be my friend and part of my life. And I have one more scripture reference, Matthew 25:21. And I think this shows his relationship with the Lord at Phantom through all these years. Well done, you upright and faithful servant. You've been trustworthy over little, so I put you in charge of much. Phantom with much. Jerry was up to the challenge. Thank you.
Say it with me. And Jesus increased in wisdom and in stature and in favor with God and man. Sir Gerald never did anything without others, and yet he never took the credit. When I was the LIT director, and I know there's a couple here that remembered, we, or they, the strong youth, decided we would clean out an area for Sir Gerald's park because we needed a place where he could sit and we could come and find compassion, love, and joy. Now, we didn't go through the board, we didn't go through anybody, but this was our commitment. And Mary Tepke, Mary Repke, came up with a song, Sir Gerald, we honor you today. Sir Gerald, we will be true. And then we celebrate you because you are you. It was a wonderful celebration, and it began with young women who believed that they could do anything. I was lucky. The first time I heard of Sir Gerald, my brother got to go to camp because he was older than I before. And we heard about Sir Gerald from Nottingham. And I love Robin Hood, and that was just up my alley. And we got to come to visitation. Some of you remember we had 10 days of camp, and then one Sunday was the parents had to come back, even though it was we just said goodbye to them. And Sir Gerald was there. And Sir Gerald came with his sword, and Robert got knighted to serve. So I thought, oh gosh, my life would be so complete. Okay, then he was gone from camp for a couple years, but then he came back. Sir Gerald came back, and I was at camp. I got full advantage. He was Bullwinkle, and they had skits. We had skits in the morning, skits at night, and the skits were Saturday Night Live top. And you talk to campers my age, and they go, "God, do you remember?" Yeah. and bowling, and then he made us come down, and we spent 2 hours looking at the ceiling one rainy day when the storms were happening, because there was something that's so rare that someone from Chicago was coming from the Museum of Science and Industry. Now, you kind of know, this is Sir Gerald, isn't it? He could keep a camp looking at a corner because it was going to move at any time. Oh, the joy of being a camper and Sir Gerald there. Also, Sir Gerald, if you went to the bathroom too many times, or when 3/10 of girls all had to go at the same time, he challenged us. And he didn't think the White Palace at that time was a place for partying. So sometimes you just think, oh, but I really, really have to go. So he said, you know, why don't we go a few at a time? And then he would entertain those who had to stay behind. Sir Gerald was a wonderful ghost storyteller. And to this day, I oh my gosh, I can still shake at it. His best friend from Waupun, we all know where he grew up, where the prison was. This prisoner came out, and his best friend was parked in a car. Yeah, as scary as it all. And he heard a noise, a clunk on the handles. And they quick drove away. And when he got home, there were 2 metal claws. And to this day, my heart just shakes when I hear that. And then, he was the best thumb drag. Oh, my thumb drag just kind of, and you didn't realize that other camps might have thumb drag. All his custodians were falling off the roofs. But he could do that, and he would go outside our tent sometimes and thumb drag. And then, of course, sitting in the Indian circle down there, he would tell about thumb drag and how he hated campers leaving the tent at night. So, yeah, what a super spreading the joy of storytelling. Right? People who can share a story can give so much to us. Then Sir Gerald, of course, grew up, and I realized he graduated from college, and he worked at the Waukesha Y. And Phantom was going to be changed. They were going to, North Central was not going to own Phantom anymore. And our hearts were, we just knew the whole world was going to fall apart. There wasn't any hope. And I know there's someone here who was just like, we were LITs, and the rickety old orange big truck came with the campers, day campers from Waukesha. And who was standing looking over camp but Sir Gerald? And the whole camp, Phantom Lake campers, came running, and we said, what are you going to do? What are you going to do? And he looked, and he said, oh, things will be all right. Things will be all right. But Sir Gerald, and the kids looked, Sir Gerald, you have to do something. You have to save us. He said, things will be all right. And the camp director came out, Van Akron, and said to me, what is your fascination with that man? Because the night of the Beatles, yeah, we've gone through that, because he was special. He was a leader of children, a leader of teens, and a leader of adults. So lucky. And then I was lucky that I got to stay on when Sir Gerald became camp director. And yes, the joy in my heart, in my family's heart. There are many times that, and I want you to think, as you were brought up the rocking chairs, kind of think, how many times rocking and rocking, and you're thinking, you're rocking, and there's a kid, sometimes there are 2 kids, Rocky. And I had a wonderful camper called Martha Washington, not George's mother. And she was homesick. And she spent many hours sitting next to Sir Gerald, rocking away, rocking away. He had a way not to make a lot of conversation, but if you wanted conversation, he'd make it. But he spread the commitment to making camp special for everyone. We didn't have very many campers go home homesick, and they were 10-day sessions back then. In fact, he was very proud of how wonderful we were able to keep those kids. You would see him sitting at Chapel in the Pines with another kid, just, and the kid would be talking away, or else they'd just be sitting there, sometimes making loop belts. You remember the belts that you just put loops in, and then your dad could get fat or skinny, and they could take them out. But you were part of camp. So I've been very lucky, and I've been very lucky because I've been a part of the Y. And I've been a part of camping. And the young camp counselors, camp people, directors that Phantom has reached out to because of Sir Gerald. And they'd say, Janet, aren't you too old to keep calling him Sir Gerald? How could I not call him Sir Gerald? And if you're a new director, and they looked, and they said, he told me I could just call him Jerry. Don't you dare call him Jerry, because he's Sir Gerald, because he is Sir Gerald. He gave us. And the joy is when he gave us Lady Sue, right? Lady Sue came and enriched camp. And we thank you, Lady Sue. We thank you. Sir Gerald, we honor you today. We thank you. We know how gracious you were to us. And as that pebble on friendship going out, here it is, right? At the end of family camp, he always formed a circle. And when he told us, thank you for coming, and go and make the world a better place. And we would leave in family camp from the circle of friendship. I dropped something, just... This is what awesome looks like. And looking down here in the family, this is what awesome looks like. Thank you all for sharing. And thanks everyone here for sharing Sir Gerald. Because he didn't belong just to me. He belongs to the world. And I have heard that from many young camp directors who needed support, and he cared enough. And Jesus increased in wisdom and in stature and in favor with God and man.
At this point in the Phantom Square ceremony, again, for those who've never seen it, there would now be 5 candles burning in this dark room. The kids who are seated up around the square, their faces would be visible now. But there's more to come, because Jerry then would direct all the campers to take their little birthday cake candles, and the flame would then be passed from these people around the square back out through the crowd. Now, we're not going to do that here today. The effect would be negligible. But certainly, you can see, if you think about it, dark lodge, and then now everybody has a candle. And he had this wonderful way of telling people, after you get your candle lit, stare into the flame. He didn't want people to look up, see. He wanted to have them see the big contrast. It was dark. You look up, everybody's got a candle, now it's light. He did such wonders with this. So eloquent. So then he would tell us that this Greek letter phi, which is in the middle of the square, had a circle part to it, and he would say that that circle represents the ripples that you get when you drop a stone into water. Ripples. And it was these ripples that he said, we would, when we left camp and went out into the world, we would share and spread the positive influence of our camp experience. We often call that phantom spirit. It's a loosely defined term, really. It encompasses love, friendship, faith, optimism, and many other such qualities. I bet we could come up with like 50 adjectives if we polled everybody here. It even merited its own song, giving that old phantom spirit. Okay, it's a big deal. Now, we have a lot of people here, or several people anyway, who never, ever came to camp for anything. All right, but the one thing we do have in common here is our lives have been influenced in some way by the life of Jerry Carman. Maybe you never met him. Maybe you're a significant other to somebody who did. Believe me, your life has been influenced by Jerry Carman. He created, Sergi created a vast set of ripples that will serve as his legacy for years to come. I just wanted to have you think back to when Jerry did get the job here in 1953, and he had a kind of an inauspicious beginning, if you think about it, with his lack of self-confidence, but it didn't take him long. He found his true calling. It was a career that allowed him to use his best assets for the benefit of so many. He saw his faith grow. He made scores of friends throughout the year, throughout his years here. Look at this. And Sir Gerald found Lady Sue, a perfect partner for him, and a family of his own. Lady Sue was really, in a way, camp's gift to Jerry, if you think about it. But for sure, this fine lady has been a marvelous gift to all of us. All of us. Now, the thing that I want to stress, because, you know, this is all about Jerry, but really, the path that he followed and the benefits that he reaped are not exclusive to Jerry. He always wanted us, with those ripples, to understand that good things are going to accrue to us, too. He wanted our story to be his story. The other way around. His story to be our story, in many ways. There are many of us here today who can credit our camp experience with strongly affecting our career choice and with opening our eyes to a truly loving God. Many of our lifelong friendships were formed here in the crucible of summer camp. I was actually going to put on this sweatshirt where it says Phantom 5, but then I realized it doesn't really fit. That's just a sweatshirt that 5 of us had made because we had some sort of exclusive club. You can use that name, it's not copyrighted. Then there's the 2% Club, a name Jerry gave to the select group of romances that begin in the heat of the summer that actually ended up in marriage. It was originally intended as a caution to young lovers. Always talked about this during staff training. 2% Club. He was cautioning us that summer romances often fail in the fall. Many of us took that as a challenge, though. The club should probably be renamed the 5 or 6% Club by now. Thank you, Sir G. I just want to close with a quick personal note. In August, I had a chance, really a gift, of spending 3 hours with Sir G and Lady Sue. During that time, the conversation turned to my initial work at camp, my initial body of work at camp. I'm not sure how that came up, but Jerry looked at me with that wonderful twinkle in his eye, and in his best Jack Nicholson voice, said, "Can you handle the truth?" Well, first of all, I was kind of stunned that he was doing Jack Nicholson. I said, "Sure, bring it on." So Jerry told me, and Lady Sue agreed, that I had been underwhelming as a counselor my first summer. So much so that they were not going to ask me to return the next year. But as it turned out, a couple of guys changed their minds over the winter, decided not to return. So Jerry reconsidered. And he saw a spark in me. He knew it was there, but it kind of took circumstances to call me back. And I think in his mind, if you think about it, it was very similar to what happened with himself. He had somebody who looked at him and saw the potential, and Jerry looked at me and saw the potential. And how thankful am I that Jerry brought me back on board? Let's put it this way, I'm one of those who received the deluxe package of gifts for my time at camp, just as Jerry did. First and foremost, my sweet wife Karen and my 2 kids, friends, incredible, incredible gifts. And if we polled the room, I'm sure we would find many, many others of you with similar stories and similar passion about your time at camp because of the gifts you've been given. All right, now, in his time as camp director, Jerry gave many people that same opportunity. And I just wanted to stress that he looked at this, he tried to make this as safe an environment as possible. He couldn't be perfect with that. He did his best. It was a place where you could bloom and grow. And I like to think of it as a place where you could redefine yourself, or you could actually find yourself. With his nurturing guidance, he actually made Phantom Lake YMCA Camp a place to be where good things could happen to good people. And when we were the beneficiaries of camp's gift, we learned to pay it forward. The truth is, Jerry did work hard. And you know what? If you think about it, you think about Jerry, did it look like he was working hard when he was rocking on the porch? Here I am running around from activity to activity. And Jerry's up on that porch rocking. But I never questioned him. I never said anything. I never even thought that way. Because he held this camp together. He was just incredible. He had high hopes that the Phantom Spirit would follow us home, and it would positively affect our lives in some way. And if by chance it didn't work out for somebody, that would not be, that would make him unhappy. He would not like that. He would do his best. He was the best homesick talker ever. He would, anybody, we have a homesick camper, take him right up to Sir G. Sir G's busy, take a number. Do not bring him to me. So, there was nobody better. So, to get back to the Phantom Square ceremony, at the close of that nighttime version, Jerry would ask us to file out to the front of the lodge for slow songs, the singing of Bile Phantom's Rippling Waters, and taps. Campers did not leave until the following morning, so Jerry really didn't have to work a goodbye into his Phantom Square. So to close this Phantom Square, let's not say goodbye to Jerry. Let's just remember him in those great times when you would see him smile, when you could make him smile. You just felt so good. When you could see that twinkle in his eye, when you could be in his favor. It's like a 5th part of the Phantom Square. In favor with Jerry, we all wanted that because we wanted to do well for a person who was doing well for us. He had such a love of life. Now, I just want to close this way. I want to say, let us be grateful for having known him. Sir G, because we knew you, we have been changed for good. We thank you for your service, kind sir. We loved you, we will miss you, and we will never forget you.